there's a wet lab up at the Grand Valley State University Health Center, and so they help manage that space and bring in, it's like an incubator space. People can come and try things and then grow their company and then move to a larger space. And the Smart Zone's been really instrumental in that. So it captures tax dollars and then reinvests those dollars in different ways.
Okay, and I don't even know what wet lab means.
Yes, well, it's a lab for scientists.
Okay.
And it's set up to have all of the equipment needed to do a lot of that research. I'm not a scientist either, so I'm learning so much. I'm learning about manufacturing, and I'm learning about science and our medical field and research, but it's really exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were talking a little bit about starting out with Hutchinson and this being in the second ward. I wanted to ask you something else about the second ward. Since you were last here, there is a new commissioner in the second ward. Tell us about Joseph Jones and how that selection process, it was a very deliberate selection process, and talk a little bit about process and this new commissioner.
Yes, so we did. It was about an 8-week process that we went through, and it felt longer than that, I think, because I won my election back in August of last year, and so it felt like it was a long time, but the actual process of going through the appointment was only about 7.5, 8 weeks. So we went through the process of accepting applications, and then we did first round interviews. We initially had 11 candidates. 3 candidates rose to the top, and those individuals went on to second round interviews. But we also provided a lot of opportunity for public input. So we got a lot of emails and phone calls and letters in support of one or more candidates. Sometimes people said, these are the 2 that I think are great, and these are the different strengths I think they bring, where others felt very strongly about one candidate over another. And then we had a community forum in the second ward, and then we had second round interviews, and then it was after that we made the decision. And it was deliberative. We did reference calls, so we reached out to people who the candidates had listed as references, and we talked to them, and we got feedback from them. And then just seeing the different candidates interact, with residents, and some of them went out and talked to neighborhoods, and some were very, I would say, took the initiative to go out and meet with business owners and business districts, really wanting to make connections. So it provided some opportunity for the individual candidates to do that. And then after all of that process, we called for a vote at one of our recent city commission meetings, and chose Joseph Jones to fill my seat. So he was sworn in that night after the vote, and and began serving right away. Okay. So he's getting, I'd say, transitioned into the position, having a lot of meetings. I've met with him. Commissioner Kelly has met with him. I know he went through an orientation process already at the city, so he's getting settled, and he'll be with us tomorrow for his first commission meeting.
All right. So tell me what was about Mr. Jones that he rose to the top, that he was the selection. Was it a unanimous vote?
So the vote ended up being unanimous. And I think for each of I don't want to speak for my colleagues, for me, it was really hard. I knew all the candidates. Actually, out of the 11 candidates, I knew quite a few of them. I think just it's second ward, and I know a lot of people in the second ward. And so anticipated that happening. But we had 3 great candidates, and final candidates. We had a lot of great candidates with all 11. But for me, what it came down to was really the process of the going through the selection process, and really having time to interact and get to know them each more, and really think through what the strengths of each candidate were. And when I voted for Joe Jones, I did so for a number of reasons. I think his experience with the city is really important. He's had a lot of experience with community and police relations, which I think is a critical issue right now. He worked with the city on he was one of the members of the committee that worked with the city manager to come up with the 12 recommendations for the police department. Also was involved in our transformation work several years ago, and then also just finished up serving on the steering committee of the river restoration. So really a lot of good experience in different areas in the city that align with a lot of our priorities right now. And I think that was what put him at the top of my list.
Okay, and he's serving out what is the rest of your former term. How much longer would that be?
Yes, so that's what I kept telling people too. So this is to fill my vacant term. So it starts now and it goes until December of next year, so December of 2017. So it's roughly a 21-month period of time.
Okay.
And next year we actually have a number of elections coming up next year, municipal elections. So we'll have 3 city commissioners who are up for election. So there'll be an opening in the 1st ward. Commissioner Schaefer is term limited out, so that'll be an open seat. We'll have the 2nd ward seat, which would have been my seat. And then 3rd ward Commissioner Lanier is up for re-election if she chooses to run again. And then our comptroller is up for re-election. So there'll be 4 city elections next year.
And is it basically an every other year election for the city?
It is. So how our city is set up is that each of the wards with 2 commissioners, they're on staggered terms, and so they are every other odd year. And I think our founding fathers were deliberate about that because they wanted to make sure that there was overlap and that you didn't have 2 brand new commissioners at any point in time, but that there would be this kind of succession planning and overlap between the commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's another appointment coming up within the city, and it is fire chief, and Laura Knapp is retired.
Yes. So actually, there's 2.
Okay.
So Chief Knapp retired. She's already finished. So we have an interim fire chief, and the fire chief process for appointment actually is done by the city manager. So the city manager has been out and about listening to people about what they think the core qualities are of a good fire chief, and then he'll be going through, with a lot of input, going through the interview process to make that decision about who will be our next fire chief. We're hoping to have a great pool of candidates, both internal and external is what I'm anticipating. But that is one appointment that will be coming up. I think our hope is that that appointment will be made, within the next 60 days. And then we also have a city commission appointee that will be working through that process as well. So our city attorney recently turned in her resignation, so she's leaving to go back to the private sector. And so there's 4 individuals at the city who are appointed by the city commission and mayor, and that is the city manager, city attorney, city clerk, and city treasurer. And so we actually started the process already of taking applications. So we're working with the Michigan Municipal League to run the interview process and to help us with really recruitment and vetting of the applicants. And then the full commission will be ultimately deciding who the next city attorney is.
Okay. Well, with the police chief, that is looking for some community input. What about with the city attorney?
Yeah. So fire chief,
I'm
our
sorry.
police chief, I get them mixed up too. I may have accidentally said that earlier. So want to
Since
assure
he
everyone.
was on our show last time, he's still
he
with
was.
us.
So hopefully he'll be around for a while. So for the fire chief, the city manager, it was towards the end of January going into February, he put out a survey to the community. He actually had 3 community forums asking for feedback from the community on fire chief. He's met with the union and has already started the process of working through with our HR department and a consultant to accept applications for the fire chief position.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then is the attorney seat vacant now? Is that job Catherine Mission left?
No, she's still with us.
Okay.
So according to our contract, she had to give 45-day notice. So
Okay.
she is with us until April 11th. So it's kind of nice that we had this lead time. We have a really incredible deputy city attorney, so I anticipate there will probably be 3 to 6 weeks in between when Catherine leaves and before the person that we offer the job to starts. But our deputy city attorney will step in and she'll lead the office, lead the department during that transition time.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing I got to ask you, and this is
Sure.
with a minute to go, I don't want to rush you though.
Sure.
There's a survey out there now. The city is looking for
There
input on
is.
its website. Tell me a
We
little bit
are.
about what you're seeking.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We're seeking input, so that's exactly what it is. We want to do a beta site, and so we're seeking input from residents and asking them what their experience has been like, and then we're going to take that feedback really seriously as we start to develop these beta sites to test out, and then the survey results as well as these beta sites will inform us as to what we need to do to move forward. So I wasn't comfortable moving forward with a significant contract to redevelop our website until we got a lot of input from the community on exactly what they want that to be.
Okay. I did take the survey. It looked like
Thank
you're really kind of asking about the functionality of the
Yes.
site. What kind of things do you go there to do to
Yes.
find out all those sorts of things? How
Yes.
long is this process?
So we'll be. That's a great question. I think it's a 6-week process, and it
Okay.
started about a week ago. And we'll be analyzing the information. I mean, there's a lot of analytics going on right now anyway, with our current site, and we're taking that information and aggregating it, and we're using that also to inform us as we move forward.
Okay. Well, we're at 15 after the hour, so next when we return, Mayor Bliss will be speaking with Stacy Stout, City of Grand Rapids' Department of the City Manager. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Schimborn, Program Coordinator and Youth Advocate at the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan. The goal of the Supporting Our Leaders Youth Program is to prepare youth and their families for lifelong success through college and career preparation, leadership development, and work readiness activities. The Youth Department serves students aged 14 to 24 with wraparound services through 12 distinct programs and is staffed with 8 bilingual and bicultural employees. We currently have open enrollment for Escalera Taking Steps to Success, which is funded by National Council de la Raza. This is a 20-month program where we follow students from their junior year in high school until their first year after high school. We work on college and career preparation, including scholarship applications, resume building, and career exploration. This program is open to any current junior that is willing to commit to the full 20 months. All participants are also entitled to a paid internship in a professional setting. Our work sites include dentist offices, law firms, universities, cosmetology offices, and much more. This opportunity gives students real-life experience that is invaluable as they move into the workforce. Students also receive a monetary compensation for actively participating in the program, maintaining regular attendance at school, and keeping acceptable grades. As a part of the program, participants have access to numerous other activities, including visits to colleges and technical schools, access to our bilingual college fair, a FAFSA workshop, and much more. In our last cohort, 4 students were chosen to take an all-expenses-paid trip to Houston, Texas, where we learned about STEM careers and even got to explore NASA headquarters, including a look at the brand new Mission Control Center. If you know of any current 11th grader that would be a good fit for this program, please contact myself by email at kshinborn@hispanic-center.org or by phone at 616-246-0575. All students that are interested must come with a parent or guardian to our bilingual orientation on Wednesday, March 16th at 6:00 p.m. at the Hispanic Center. For more information about this or other programs, please join us for our weekly walk-in orientations every Wednesday at 1:30 or 3:30 at the Hispanic Center, located at the corner of Hall and Granville at 1204 Granville Avenue Southwest.
I am so excited today to have with me Stacy Stout. So it was last year, it was actually just about a year ago, that we at the city had our very first neighborhood summit. And I was lucky enough to chair that committee and was really busy this time last year working on that. And last year's neighborhood summit, what we asked for is we asked for a lot of feedback from the people that attended. And then what we did is we took all of the feedback and we aggregated the information, and then we had the top kind of priorities that came out of that we started working on as a city commission. So one of the recommendations that came out of that was that people really wanted someone at the city more focused on neighborhoods, that, you know, we say that neighborhoods are a priority, which they absolutely are, that we should back that up with having somebody designated to always being focused on neighborhoods. So it was last year that the city commission, as part of our budget process, added the position of an assistant to the city manager, really highlighting the importance of that position by making it an assistant to the city manager. And it coincided with another group that had just finished up called SAFE. And the SAFE Task Force came forward to the City Commission with a whole list of ideas and recommendations for the city to take on to really look at crime prevention, strengthening neighborhoods. It aligned a lot with what we were talking about at the Neighborhood Summit. So we, last year in May, so May of 2015, as part of our budget, we approved the position of Assistant to City Manager with the focus of being a neighborhood coordinator. So that position was approved in June. It took some time to develop the job and the job description, and then we posted it. We went through a pretty lengthy process of interviewing, and It was all worth it because we got this incredible candidate, Stacy Stout. So she was hired actually last year, started in January of this year, so just a couple months ago, as the assistant to the city manager focused on neighborhoods. And I always refer to you as our neighborhood coordinator. But anyway, so Stacy is relatively new, but she jumped right in, got started, and actually took the lead on helping organize and get really come to fruition the second annual Neighborhood Summit, which happened last Friday, which we're going to talk about today. So with that, I want to welcome Stacy.
Thank you.
And for those who don't know Stacy, I'd like to just start off by, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and your experience? I know you have a ton of experience in our community.
Well, I live and work in Grand Rapids, so I'm a Grand Rapidian with my husband, a proud GRPS parent. Our children go to CA Frost. I come to the city via the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, where I helped oversee their investments here in Grand Rapids and some of the statewide portfolio, but really having a strong lens on racial equity, community engagement, community voice and decision-making in policies and practices and initiatives that affect their community. So, and prior to then, I grew my leadership really with the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan, where I was education director for 7 years.
Yeah.
A lot of people know me through that work as well.
Yes. Well, we are so glad to have you at the city. So you're in your second month officially.
Yes.
So tell us how the transition has been.
Well, it's been a whirlwind, right? So I started at the very end of January, and then with this Neighborhood Summit, which is just so growing in popularity. We had about 350 folks in attendance, a lot of different moving parts, so I jumped right in with that. And also just really getting to know the city. I felt prior to joining the city, I was a pretty informed resident, but getting the opportunity to meet one-on-one with the different directors and learn about all the services and initiatives has been really inspiring, actually.
Yeah. Oh, good. So let's talk about the summit. Okay. So we just had the summit on Friday. Yes. As you said, over 350 people there. It was amazing. Yes. I was there almost the entire day. So why don't you talk about that? Like people who weren't able to be there, what was the day like? What are you hoping will come out of it?
Well, the day was a full day, right? 9 to 4. Starting out with the opening address and kind of some context setting, but then we went into really 4 unique and dynamic workshops. So the workshop titles were Race and Equity, actually presented by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, which was really great as far as getting people up, moving around, small groups, really dynamic and very intentional to get recommendations on how we can make the city a more equitable place to live and work. The second workshop was really school renaissance. And so we have a lot of great models actually with Grand Rapids Public Schools. We focus on Congress Elementary, where they spoke about how the neighborhoods, the neighbors, residents, and the school all work together to really transform the school for better child level outcomes. So it was really inspiring and really a how-to guide so people could leave with practical recommendations. The third one was really learning about SIDS and BIDs, so corridor improvement districts and business improvement districts. As a tool for community engagement and community voice in economic development, therefore, community empowerment. And then the fourth one was affordable housing. So Commissioner Allen and Gustavo shared a lot of data, context setting, and some best practices on how we could be more inclusive.
Yeah. And then the day ended with a panel, a Q&A period, and then at the end, everyone who participated, they were asked to give feedback, not just on the summit, but then also to provide their ideas about what the city can do.
Yes, and so we are actually going through those today. We're about halfway through. We have so many different evaluations because, as you mentioned earlier, we really do look at every single evaluation, every single, we call it recommendation ballot. So what's our number one recommendation to make neighborhoods stronger, therefore the city stronger, because neighborhoods are critically important to our city. So we're going through those and going to pull out themes and recommendations to work. And some of those recommendations are going to be for the city, some are going to be for different partners. And so really developing a report that the community can use, because this is a community event and therefore they deserve to have access to the findings.
Yeah, so we'll get a report probably next month, and it's again really good intentional timing because the City Commission again is embarking on our budget process. So
yes, very strategic timing.
It is. It is.
Yes.
Another thing that came out of last year that I will be, I've asked the city attorney or city manager to include in this year's budget is the start of a neighborhood matching fund. So do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Because it really is a best practice, and this, this tool, the Neighborhood Matching Fund, was presented last year at the summit.
Yeah.
And the more research I do, and actually coming from a foundation, we were actually trying to explore some small grants because it really does have powerful impact.
It does.
You can get resources and empowerment to those right on the block, and sometimes they're not a part of a structure of a 501c3 or a neighborhood association, but it's Miss Susie, who knows everyone on the block, who's been organizing for years, and how do we get resources and identify her as a leader to, as the HR department we're doing within the city, grow our own. So this is a great way to identify leadership, empower community, this is their community, and they're experts.
Yeah.
Who knows that block more than those living on the block? And so really partnering with them and leveraging their expertise and getting some resources there. And I just really love the sustainability of it once we build up the principle, and just the equity lens to get resources where they're needed. So matching. So we would give a small grant, and they could match that. It could be volunteer hours, it could be in-kind donations, it could be cash matching as well, or all three.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that.
I am too. That's one of the, yes.
So another charge of yours, which will be a significant part of your job, is really taking a lot of the recommendations that came out of the SAFE task force, which I can't remember how many pages. It's several pages of recommendations.
Yes, pages and pages.
Pages and pages, and not all of them need to be led by the city, or really don't even. The city is really not even the one that is ultimately responsible for some of the recommendations. They're around education and community health, and we need the county at the table, we need the schools, we need our community partners, but some of them are really specific to the city. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you've started to tackle, maybe even prioritize those?
And so how I've prioritized this is actually brought them back to the community. So I have my guidepost on the position, but when I develop and start filling in really what that means, because I believe in community voice, I've been meeting with external partners to kind of go over those key recommendations. How about the work should we go about it? How should we go about it? Not just what should we do, but how should we go about this work? And really partnering with them, getting buy-in, leveraging their expertise. So a lot of it's going to be working with the chief of police. We've already started meeting monthly to kind of flesh out different strategies for prevention, crime prevention. But I believe firmly that hope is a great prevention tool, and so when people have equitable access to jobs, Homeboy Industries out of LA, Father Boyle from Homeboy Industries, he says nothing stops a bullet like a job. And so what are we looking at? When at the summit we talked about income inequality, right? And so how do we start working with our partners for employment in the community?
Yeah, that's a significant priority. So it looks like we are out of time. So we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and we'll do more of a Q&A.
Welcome back to City Connection. Rosalind Bliss, just talking with Stacy Stout with the city. This is your opportunity now to ask some questions. If you do want to talk to Stacy Stout about neighborhood initiatives, get a hold of us here. You can do it even by phone, 459-4881. We use Twitter at GRTVaccess and GRTV's Facebook, all ways to get a hold of us here. Stacy, good to meet you. Good to hear a little bit about you. Coming to the city from W.K. Kellogg Foundation, deep in equality issues there. Talk a little bit about what propelled you to the city.
Well, one, I love Grand Rapids. As I mentioned earlier, I live here. I raised my children here intentionally. And so I found that it was an exciting, so when I was reading about the neighborhood and lifting up resident voice, it just really resonated with me because it's a similar value that I had with the Kellogg Foundation. But it allowed me to have impact in a different way, in addition to convening and giving out grants, but to really get in the work with city leadership, to get in there, be a thought partner, a strategy partner. I just couldn't pass it up. It was a great opportunity to serve.
Your requote of nothing stops a bullet like a job very much impact to that whole idea. I want to hear a little bit more about jobs initiatives, job equality. What do you see on the horizon? You're still kind of gathering the feedback from the Neighborhood Summit on Friday, but what are you finding out? What are you learning? What's ahead?
Economic justice is a key in all of the external meetings that I've done over the past 2 months since I've started the position, has been key and really a pillar of those conversations. It's folks want an opportunity, an equitable opportunity to provide for their families, and they should have it. In the data that we've received from Dr. White when I was at the Kellogg Foundation, who did an analysis of the neighborhoods, there's jobs in Grand Rapids. There's jobs in the neighborhoods that have the most racialized outcomes when it comes to employment, and they're not getting the jobs. And so he also tested and studied for what many call a skills gap and found that that simply didn't exist, or if it was very minor, and it was a few days, maybe a week of training. For most of the jobs, not all. And so that has been a really key conversation point and a place where I feel we can make the most impact as a city, not just big C, but little c, all of us together to work towards employment and preparing, and pipeline as well, preparing folks and for jobs here in the city.
So action steps, any in mind at this point?
Well, one is actually out of our human resources. We know that we're going to have a lot of turnover in the city. A lot of folks are getting eligible, not that they're going to take it, but they're eligible for retirement. How are we preparing our Grow Your Own initiative to get folks ready for these jobs? Grand Rapidians that want to work for the city and serve their city. And so that is one initiative that I feel is going to be very fruitful and effective. And actually, we already have the infrastructure, right? We have HR and we have relationships with the community. So how do we leverage those and be strategic about it?
Yeah, and we just added on a position really specifically focused on recruitment and how do we make sure that we're recruiting individuals from Grand Rapids, a very diverse pool of candidates to start to fill those positions.
One of the departments we've heard about before really trying to recruit is the police department, but where else? All across the board?
Across the board. We need diversity, and we need to target people right here in our own community to take positions in every single department.
What is the diversity makeup of the city of Grand Rapids, of the employees?
Oh, I don't know it off the top of my head. It's not consistent with the census tract, I know that. We need a lot more diversity, but I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head.
Okay. You know, Mayor Bliss, you mentioned that you're an avid reader and that you're kind of doing a citywide book club sort of thing with Todd Robinson's City Within a City. Talk a little bit about how that plays into this neighborhood focus and equity.
Well, you know, for me, one, Todd Robinson's coming, and he'll be speaking on the 24th, so I'm really excited to meet him and to have him here in Grand Rapids. You know, my hope is that, you know, we've given out hundreds of the books. They're available at the library. Lots of people have already talked to me. They're working on the book or they're close to finishing it. It's a heavy book to read. There's parts that are really heartbreaking. So it's a heavy book. Many people have told me they have to read it in small, you know, bits because it's so heavy. But my hope is that through that shared experience, we start to have a dialogue about really what brought us to where we are today. And then from that, we need to build. We need to build on how do we move forward to start to address some of these racial disparities that exist in our community in a very meaningful way where we have specific outcomes. Where do we want to be in 4 years and how do we get there?
Okay. Tell us a little bit about when you were envisioning this position as part of the City Commission, this position that now Stacy occupies, what you had in mind, what the City Commission had in mind, and how Stacy is that right person.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things. One is we wanted somebody singularly focused on neighborhoods all the time, that was their job, to not just constantly be looking at best practices and what's happening in other cities, but to implement a lot of the things that we had been talking about for a long time, but then also just to be a voice. As an elected official, I'm not at city, both my position and my colleagues, the city commissioners, we're all part-time elected officials. So we're not there at the city 40 hours a week, although I feel like I'm working 40 hours a week. It's typically not during the day. I'm not in the office, 40 hours a week like a traditional position. And we need somebody at City Hall really focused on neighborhoods full-time. And so I'm really happy that Stacy's able to do that. But then also we've had a number of recommendations that have come from the community, and we just haven't had somebody designated who can really take those recommendations and implement them. It's hard when you have so many recommendations coming from so many people. I think I'm more acutely aware of this now than ever before, that there are so many people with so many ideas, and I only have the capacity to do so much. And that's how it is at City Hall, right? You have all these people who have ideas and recommendations. And so we wanted somebody to really vet those out, look at them, what makes sense for our community, where do we need to focus our attention. I have always said that every neighborhood is unique with their own strengths and struggles, and that we can't have a cookie cutter approach. And to provide individualized support to neighborhoods, it takes extra time and effort, and that's what I'm not hoping, I know that Stacy will do. So I actually have known Stacy for a long time through my work as a social worker, and when Stacy was at the Hispanic Center. So I know the quality of her work, I know her value system, I really trust her experience and what she brings to City Hall.
Okay. Stacy, for you, in somewhat of an order, some priorities, did this Neighborhood Summit really provide you with a wealth of information that kind of leads you on how you go forward, or what is sort of?
It will. We're going through the recommendations.
Okay.
It's really the next work day. It
Yes.
just happened this week. So we're currently going through them, and almost everyone turned in evaluations. So that's 350, 3-page evaluations that we're combing through. All I know from the data is that people were very pleased with it. They learned a lot. We assessed for learning, and now we're getting all of the comments. People are very generous with their feedback, so we're able to get really concrete feedback on what that is. But there's a lot of interest around getting together a plan, like you were saying, a citywide plan for equity. What does that mean? What's our benchmark data? How are we going to measure that on an annual, or depending on where the data source comes from, an annual or every 5-year basis? But being really transparent about that and working a plan and communicating that with community, because so often, we fill out surveys and we're like, whatever happened to that survey? What,
Never hear
what was
again.
right? And so we really want to respect our partners, which are the residents and all those who are at the summit, and report back. So I'll know soon.
Okay.
Maybe
So
I'll come back and we can go over that.
Yes.
And the summit must have been a huge success, because I heard about so many people wanting to get in that couldn't. Did this one, did the response to this one surprise you all? Will it be bigger next time? So lots of people want to participate.
They do, and I think that's fantastic. And so we have a lot of different space in the city, right? So we'll be contacting some different partners and seeing possibly to explore maybe a different location that's larger, but GRPS was such a fantastic partner. I don't know what we would do without them. But yes, we're looking to expand it possibly. Because
I know you're still assessing a lot of the details and a lot of the feedback, but some gems that you've come across so far, I know you can't take collectively and come out with a theme if you're not through assessing, but what are some things that you did notice that were in the responses in the surveys?
People are really, one of the workshops was about SIDS and bids. Folks were really interested in that. It was for a lot of folks, it was new information, and what I was really excited about is a lot of people wanted to join. How do I get involved? And so there was a lot of signing up in these workshops, right?
So tell me what these districts are. What are CIDs and BIDs?
I'm sorry, excuse me. The corridor improvement districts. So we have a few of those around the city that the businesses, the community, they come together to really improve and plan what that corridor is going to look like, the economic engines there, and really just kind of own that part of their community. And the bids, there's a business what is that?
Improvement District.
Thank you. So many acronyms.
I
That's
know
another-
there are.
Business Improvement District. So business owners and residents come together specifically around the business's development.
And the difference between the two, the CIDs, the Quarter Improvement Districts, are TIF districts, and so that they are able to capture dollars, increase in property tax dollars. So there's a baseline set, and then that tax increment can be captured, and it's usually captured a little bit at a time, so they're not huge amounts of money, but then those dollars can be used only for infrastructure improvements. So lighting, trash cans, things like that.
Brick sidewalks.
Brick
that sort of-
sidewalks.
Bicycle racks?
Bicycle racks, yeah. Anything, if you can think of anything tangible. The bids, business improvement districts, are actually self-assessments. So those business owners, they vote and they decide to basically tax themselves. So they pass a special assessment that they pay in addition to and on top of what they're already paying in taxes. Those dollars are collected, and then those dollars can be used for all types of activities. They can be used for marketing, they can be used for beautification, they can be used for cleanup. So if you think of Uptown, Uptown has a CID and a bid. It's the oldest CID and bid in the city. The Uptown bid, they pay individuals to come and clean the district. They pay for flowers, landscaping. They pay for their trash cans to be cleaned out. They pay for marketing. So if you hear about the Easttown Street Fair or Bazaar, very often Uptown bid is promoting those events. So they have the shop hop in the winter, and then they have in the summer, they do every once a month, they do an activity in each of the 4 different business districts. That's all paid for by the bid. The CID, that's the dollars in Uptown. The CID has been used to buy new trash cans and bike racks and things like that. So that gives you a sense of how they're different, but also how they play together to really not just promote a district, but to beautify and make that district, more aesthetically, pleasing. But then also it provides an opportunity for that district to come together around branding itself. So Uptown, you have 4 districts, 4 business districts. The West Side, you have multiple business districts, and so that's a unique opportunity too. North Quarter, you have two business districts there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then it's not just neighborhood associations that you're working with by any means. You're covering all of these areas, these corridors and these business districts, all of that.
We definitely have a team. So I'll be working with Kara Wood, who really works more directly with the business associations. But business associations and neighborhoods are the same space, right?
Yes.
and so we work as a team. So I'll be supporting her and being a strategic partner with her as well. So.
Okay. This question was asked before we went on air, but knowing that you were going to be here, both of you, the question is, how are some of these districts and neighborhoods identified and the borders drawn around them? Every now and then you'll see a new one that you never recognized before, like Near West was something that wasn't always an area of town, but now is identified a little bit differently. And it seems like there's overlays of maybe something that Grand Valley or the Johnson Center or the city, lots of different organizations or city builders that are defining things a little bit differently. How do you work with that?
Yeah. So the lines are actually drawn. It's a pretty lengthy process to get to having a proposal to become a TIF district or a CID. And it's really largely through the work done in that community, in that neighborhood business district. And they will draw the lines and they'll talk to business owners, but largely for the CIDs and the bids, it'll be contiguous business districts who voluntarily choose to work together to come up with a CID. But it's so it doesn't necessarily go into the residential neighborhoods. Now sometimes it's, if you have, like on Wealthy Street, you have a couple blocks with businesses and then a couple blocks with residential. That will all be included in the district. But it's largely business districts who come together, and then they will draw the lines. They'll make the recommendation. Some districts, they start to draw a line, and then you have some businesses or some portions who say, no, we don't want to be in it, so they'll redraft those lines. And then they have to get support. So you have to have support as a district to come forward. Michigan Street Corridor, they recently became a CID. They created a CID, and same thing, they worked really long and hard on what that district would look like and how far down Michigan they went, and it took a lot of talking and bringing people together to support that.
Okay. Well, we're at a quarter till the hour almost, so Stacy Stout, I want to thank you for joining us on air today. Look forward to hearing back from you, though, on some of these assessments, some of these surveys, and all the results that came out of that. Stacy Stout with the City Manager's Office and focusing on neighborhoods. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And this is City Connection on GRTV's Live Wire Channel 24. We'll be back in about a minute and a half.
Thank you. You were great.
How do you build a strong local food economy? Meet Chris. Chris is opening Osteria Rosa, a locally sourced Italian restaurant in a building brought back to life by 616 Development. But he doesn't know any local farmers to supply him with food year-round. This is Melissa. Melissa runs the Fulton Street Farmers Market and publishes a long list, even in the dead of winter, of available produce, meats, bakery goods, and more on the Rapidian. This is Amy. Amy wants to do more to support the farmers in her local food economy. Amy talks to Melissa, who introduces her to farmers at the Fulton Street Farmers Market, and Amy, in turn, publishes their stories, also on the Rapidian. Chris hears about the Rapidian and now has access to a local grocery list and information that he needs to make connections with local farmers. He feeds his patrons with local food year-round. Connections multiply, meals are shared, a stronger local food economy is built.
Welcome back to City Connection with Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss. I'm Linda Galanch with GRTV Live Wire. This is your opportunity to now ask Mayor Bliss any question you want. I don't mean to set you up with that, but
That's okay.
Call us, email us, whatever it may be. GRTV's Live Wire, you can get us here on air right now, 459-4881. Email works, cityconnection@grcmc.org. And Twitter is at GRTVaccess. GRTV's Facebook page works as well. Mayor Bliss, it has been a light year for snow.
Yes.
And this is one of the questions that's already come in. This one is from Arnold. And with light snowfall, there's less expense and salt, whatever it may be. How does the city deal with the funds? It's a huge guess when you're making your budget.
It is. So, and that's a great question. It is. So in our budget for streets, everything is included in that. So street cleaning and salt and plowing and potholes. And so I haven't seen a mid-year update based on the winter. But my guess is that we did come in under budget on salt and plowing, which is good. Good for all of us who didn't have to get out there and shovel our sidewalks as much.
We may have just caused a huge snowstorm for tomorrow by talking about this.
Knock on wood. So that money will be used within that department for other things. And so I anticipate we'll probably get an update soon. Usually we have a kind of early year, first quarter update on the fiscal year on the budget, and those dollars will be used within that same department though. So it'll be used for potholes and other type of street needs.
So the complete streets assessment and all that kind of mapped out a huge project for getting the streets in shape. So I have no doubt that money is needed elsewhere.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, and we do have a plan. So we have the Vital Streets Committee. We have a Vital Streets plan. So starting right after the income tax extension passed, we started working through a list of priority streets, which ones were in the worst condition, where did we need to start, which ones were at a place where we could do a cap and seal or other types of work to really extend their life. So we've done all of that analysis and assessment, and we have a list. Last year we had 238 street projects going on throughout the construction season. But as you all know, I've already started to see these all over the city. We're starting to see those potholes. Every year with the cold and the freeze and the thaw and the freeze and the thaw, you end up having the potholes that pop up in the spring, and we're already starting to see those. We're getting them called in. If you see a pothole, please call us, call 311. We will get it on our list and we'll get crews out for that. So that's what we're entering. So I am quite sure that any money saved from plowing will be used in potholes.
For sure. Well, talking a little bit about budgeting and that sort of thing, it's not too early for the city's budget process to start. It does start usually in April for a July 1 fiscal year.
Yes, and actually the city manager starts working on the budget actually at the first of the year. And so the city manager, it is his budget to create and present to the city commission. And this city manager, it's interesting, I served as commissioner under Kirk Kimball, and I think each city manager has their own process and their own how they do budgets. So for our city manager Greg Sundstrom, what he started in January is he started meeting individually with myself and commissioners, really asking for their input. He has consistently asked us for input as he's working on his budget. And then he starts meeting with each individual department head. He has a target for what he's looking at based on projected revenues. We're always looking at revenues at the city. Where are we coming in? We have a lot of different moving parts. Income taxes is pretty volatile, so it fluctuates quite a bit. And then we get funding from the state through revenue sharing. So there's constitutional and there's statutory, and that can change based on the state budget. And state budget, that could be a whole show. They have their own issues right now with their budget. So we're anticipating probably a little less in statutory revenue sharing, but we don't know for sure where those numbers will come in. And then property tax is a bit more stable, and then we have another portion of our budget is made up through fees for service. So after the city manager has a sense of where we're going to be with revenue, then he'll start giving department heads some targets to say, you need to cut, or you have this much, or he'll take priority areas and he'll say, okay, we really want to spend more in economic development. So Stacy was just talking about jobs. We know that that's absolutely critical. There's a lot going on in our community right now, and we want to make sure that our economy continues to be strong. So he'll set some priorities in different areas and give department heads some instruction, and then he'll start working through each department, and then he'll put the entire budget together and he'll present it to the full commission. And I anticipate he'll probably do that in April, so next month.
Okay, so community meetings, usually some
Yes.
hearings, some citizen input at that point?
Yes, so the process is pretty in-depth. The City Commission will meet every single week, sometimes 3 to 5 hours a week, walking through the entirety of the budget that's being proposed. And then as we get close to working through that process of the City Commission, going through all the different pieces of the budget, then we'll have a public hearing. We'll provide an opportunity for feedback, and then we have to pass the budget by the end of June for a July 1 start date, and it has to be balanced. So the city manager says this multiple times throughout the process. If you want to add something, you have to figure out where to take it away somewhere else, and that often is the challenge. And it's really hard to sometimes get consensus around the commission table to say, okay, we want to put more resources here and take them away from here. So that's really the push and pull of the budget process.
Okay, so one of the new line items to the budget, it sounds like, will be having to do with neighborhoods and neighborhood
Yes.
grants. So talk a little
Yes.
bit about what kind of money we're talking about there, how that would be, I guess, divided, or whether it's a pool to be applied for, and where those funds will come from. Then.
Yes, so you're absolutely right. So I recommended putting $50,000 into a fund to start the neighborhood matching fund. My hope is that we will have foundations that are willing to come alongside us and add to that fund. But I would like to at least start it with $50,000, and that would be utilized to provide mini grants, anywhere from $500 to maybe $3,000, $5,000 in different neighborhoods throughout the city. So we don't have, Stacy is actually working on that right now, what that structure would look like. But other cities have neighborhood matching funds, and they all set them up a little bit differently. My hope is that we would have a citizen review panel that would work with Stacy to review applications every quarter, and that there would be some real intention to make sure that they're equitably dispersed throughout the city. So I don't want them all going to the second ward or the first ward. It would be really nice to make sure that there's some equity in how they're dispersed throughout the city. But my hope is that we get a lot of different projects, and whether it's a block club or a neighborhood association or a smaller neighborhood group, or my hope is that I hope young people step up and say, hey, we want to do this in our neighborhood, and that they work together to submit a grant.
So you mentioned a couple types of entities that can apply. So it could be a neighborhood association or a block club, individuals, one street, one. It could be that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And I was really clear that this is what I was hoping with the neighborhood matching fund. So in our city, we have great neighborhoods. We have 32 neighborhoods throughout the city, but not all of those neighborhoods have organized neighborhood associations or nonprofits. So a lot of the organized neighborhood associations are 501c3s. They have staff. They have a board of directors. They seek out grants. They get money. Many of them get money from the city through the community development block grants. But there's a lot of neighborhoods that are 100% volunteer. They have no staff. They come together to work on different projects in their city. And I wanted to make sure that the neighborhood matching funds were available for everyone, regardless of whether you had an organized neighborhood association in your neighborhood.
Okay, so you said they're matching funds. Part of the money from the city, these groups would have to find on their own.
They could, but that's the great thing, is it doesn't have to be a dollar for dollar match. The match could come in volunteer hours, the match could come in kind donations, the match could come just by an agreement saying for the next 5 years we will maintain this. So let's say a neighborhood wants to build a community garden, or they want to do something in the right-of-way, so maybe they want to plant trees or plant flowers or do some beautification. So they could ask for funds to actually buy the materials, the trees, the plants, the flowers, and then their match could be that they are committed to watering them, to weeding them, to taking care of them for a certain period of time, and that could be the match. And it's really amazing. I fundamentally believe that when a small group of people get together, they can do incredible things with a small amount of money. And we see some of that throughout the city. I mean, you look at neighborhoods that have come together with $1,000 and added 3 murals to their community. I mean, murals, or they will paint the trash cans, or they'll paint the utility boxes. It doesn't cost a ton of money, but it does cost some to get those dollars, and sometimes to pay the folks who are working on it. And that's my hope. I hope we see creative, innovative ideas come forward, that people have a little bit of resources to do some great things in their neighborhoods, and permission and empowerment. And I just want people to realize that we're here to support you.
Okay, so those neighborhood matching grants, look for those in the next budget then.
Yes, I'm hoping by July 1 we have that off the ground.
Okay. Regular City Commission meeting is tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you'll be taking on.
Yeah, so we have a full day tomorrow. We have a number of I'm trying to think through the budget, the agenda right now. So we have a couple neighborhood enterprise zone requests coming forward tomorrow. We have some discussion. We'll have some follow-up on discussions we've had about NEZs and economic development tools. So I'll add to that a little bit. One of the recommendations that has come out of the housing strategies was to look at the incentives that the city provides. And so that includes obsolete property, neighborhood enterprise zones, and we're looking at those tools right now to figure out how can we use those to incent affordable housing. So affordable housing continues to be a top priority at the city. It actually came up at the Neighborhood Summit as well as a top priority, and so we're going to continue to look at that. So tomorrow I know we have 2 items before us specifically to NEZs.
Okay. There are morning meetings, there are committee meetings, and there are the evening meetings.
Yes.
Tell a little bit of public's invited.
Absolutely. Public's invited. Our evening meetings are at 7 p.m. There's a spot on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting where you can speak to anything that we're voting on, but the actual part for open public comment is closer to the end of the meeting, once we get through all the business. So sometimes people come right at 7 and they're disappointed because there's a lot happening and there's not an opportunity to talk to closer to like 7:30, 7:45. Okay. So just be aware of that. We love to hear from people. People come and talk about a lot of different things. They bring issues and concerns to the table, and we follow up on them. So we have city staff right there. We will assign them to do things after the meeting. Okay. So your voice is heard.
All right, and that's tomorrow.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
Rosalind Bliss, thank you for joining us again on City Connection. We'll be back first Monday of April. This is City Connection on GRTV's Live Wire Channel 24.